Irelia is broken. How broken is she? Pretty broken. Um, After the update they did to her recently, she has seen an extreme spike in win rate. Now, normally when I look at these charts, you guys see that I look at Plat Plus. Today, I am not looking at Plat Plus, but I'm actually looking at all ranks. That means every rank. Riven, I get Irelia currently has a higher win rate and pick rate than Garen at all ranks top lane. She is pretty overpowered. So, what exactly happened here? I wonder. People have been asking me what makes her so overpowered. What is going on? Now, when I go to Plat Plus, we can see that actually, ironically, currently, Irelia gets less win rate the higher rank you go. Now, what is happening here? I looked into this a little bit, and there are a few things. I don't believe Irelia is no longer high ranking viable, but I do believe they definitely broke this champion for all ranks, but definitely the lower ranks as well. Now, there are a few things that I believe going through all this data that I found out. The most important one is people need to stop going Divine Sunderer on Irelia. Now, that doesn't really make sense to go Divine Sunderer. That, the pick rate and win rate is substantially lower than Immortal Shield Bow. This is at Plat Plus. If we look at all ranks, this remains true even harder. Now, Divine Sunderer does gain more win rate the higher rank you go. That's true. If we look here at Diamond Plus, it closes a little, D2 Plus, it closes a little, but it never will be as good as Immortal Shield Bow. Both Gore Drinker and Trinity currently, despite having lower pick rates, outperform Divine Sunderer. That should be obvious to everyone. Despite this item being overpowered, it is not the ideal Irelia item. It does okay, purely because the champion is so overpowered right now. What broke on this champion? Well, let's look at her buffs. What you might notice is that they buffed the absolute mother of God out of her late game. Her health growth went up a lot. Her W gained substantially more damage reduction. While her early game was nerfed a little bit, the late game of this champion went up considerably, especially with the R. Now, they did remove some of the weaknesses of this champion. Now, I'm not going to get too far into this, okay? But definitely her Q being on a lower cooldown means that if it gets cancelled in a mid to late game team fight, she no longer just dies. In addition, it means that she can potentially miss her E and no longer be totally incapable of proccing her passive. Her Q and her W, especially with her Q on a lower cooldown, can somewhat proc her passive up. Unless you are not at all near a minion wave and you are in a 1v1 and you don't have your ultimate and you missed your E, you should basically be guaranteed to get your passive up in a reasonable amount of time, even missing everything. Now, there are a few things that I noticed when I was looking at the stats of this champion. I did, of course, decide not to do this based on my opinion, but to rather do this based on the champion's stats, just their stats. Where am I looking here? There we go. If we look at her win rate by game duration, it goes up and then it stays pretty steady the entire game. I'm wondering if, no, I can't look at previous patches, but I promise you that in previous patches, her win rate by game duration went down. It did not stay steady. So she now scales and does well throughout the entire game. She's a little bit weaker in the early game, but the trade-off has been a substantial buff to her late game. This champion is very overpowered right now. She only has up to go. Her ban rate is going way up. Her win rate is continuing to climb. Now, to be clear, there are some things with this champion that are lowering her win rate. A lot of people are maxing the wrong abilities, thinking that you can max W second now, but instead maxing E into W is still the best thing to do. There are a lot of people building the wrong items. Divine Sunderer, we see that pretty frequently. When people learn how to build this champion more properly, and when people play the champion more properly, her win rate will continue to go up. I do not believe that Irelia has seen a massive decrease in her win rate, and so I think that there's likely going to be a problem here in the coming days. Her win rate continues to go up. Now, for those of you that don't know how stats work, that means that the new data coming in shows her at a higher win rate than the data currently in these websites. That means that her win rate isn't actually at 50%, but as it continues to rise in D2+, that means her current win rate, as people build better items, as people max their abilities smartlier, her win rate will continue to rise, and her win rate is probably more like a 51-52%. Especially at the lower ranks, this is massive. Irelia is currently stronger than Garen. Now, for those of you who don't understand what all ranks means, all ranks tanks all ranks, and it throws them together. But the important thing here is if we look at bronze, 53,000. If we look at silver, 136,000. If we look at gold, we can see 128,000. When we look at platinum, 48,000. When we look at diamond, 12,000. So when we look at all ranks, we are primarily looking at the silver and gold ranks. Some platinum and more bronze and, well, yeah, basically gold and silver with some platinum and bronze thrown in there. The diamond and the masters players do not have enough games to potentially impact these at any real amount. So these are basically the mid to low ranks and their win rate. This is very bad for Irelia players who don't want their champion to get nerfed. Because a champion who is harder than Garen to play, and I believe for those of you who play Irelia and want me to say it, yes, I think she's a bit harder to play than Garen. A champion who is harder than Garen to play by a good chunk should probably not have a higher pick rate and win rate than Garen at all ranks. What we can expect in the coming days is a nerf to probably, and this is in my opinion, her late game. The best way to nerf the mid to low ranks is a late game. At the high ranks, games tend to not go on as long. So particularly with the buffs to her late game, what we can see here, especially when we look at the stats and we see her win rate by game duration has completely flat. A champion who is still somewhat competent early game, in fact I would call her still decent enough, pretty good early game, not amazing anymore, but decent enough, is now good in the late game. And she's pretty good in the late game. Too good. So the best way to nerf her for all ranks in a way that doesn't impact the late game, or sorry, that doesn't impact the high ranks as much, is to nerf her late game. So what I suspect is we will likely see her health growth reduced, and we will probably see the damage reduction on her W reduced at the higher levels. If you want me to put an actual number on this, and you want to test how smart I am, I suspect if we do see nerfs, it will be her health per level growth reduced to 105, maybe 100, but probably 105. And we will probably see Divine Dance nerfed to 60% damage reduction. I think that those two changes will be what Riot goes with to hurt her max level, to affect the lower to mid ranks far more than the higher ranks. Now, just to be clear, Irelia still does have a higher skill chat. So this 52% win rate is much more like at the all ranks area. This 52% win rate is probably about 4% too high. If I look at similar champions like Aatrox, like Riven, we can see that they are significantly lower pick rate and very much lower win rate. So she would need to drop 3% win rate at all. But with that double pick rate than these similar champions, her win rate at this level of play should probably be closer to 48%. So if you want to remember this and you want to call me on this one, if you want to come back tomorrow when they reveal the patch changes and go, you were right or you were wrong, I believe that those will be the changes. I believe, based on what Riot has done in the past, we'll see her health growth reduced and we will see her W reduced to about 60% of max rank. So, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate everybody who continues to subscribe to my Patreon. Patreon? Patreon? If you want to support this and continue to have more videos to watch, I highly suggest you subscribe to my Patreon. There's a $3 option that I leave available to you guys, and it is immensely beneficial to me because as my Patreon continues to grow, that means I can continue to put more effort into these videos, knowing that I have a steadier income, not impacted by other things. So thank you, everybody, and make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and leave a comment if you think I'm going to be right or if you think I'm going to be wrong. And tomorrow, if I was right or if I was wrong, make sure to comment on that. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of your day.